Hello, creatives. My name is Matthias, known as that Matthias Kid on Instagram or just TMK for short. I want to welcome everyone to Dreaming in Red by Hearts Cove, where dreaming in red means dreaming with energy, passion, strength, courage, and creativity. We talk with creatives about the sacrifices they have made to reach their own success while looking to inspire other creatives around the globe. Today I'm joined by Jared. Jared, if you would please let us know who you are, what you do, how old you are, things like that.
My name is Jared Scrowther. I'm 26 years old. I live in Joplin, Missouri, and I am a filmmaker slash videographer, I guess.
Slash cinematographer.
Slash cinematographer, yeah. It, I kind of wrestle with like that language of filmmaker versus videographer, but I like to consider myself
Right.
more of a filmmaker.
But it's like, what really makes a difference in cinematographer versus videographer versus, filmmaker?
Mm-hmm.
What is the balance in between calling yourself one or the other?
Yeah,
But it's also like the same thing with like photography. Like, I've always asked this to myself too. Like, what do you consider professional photographer? Like,
Yeah.
how do you know when you're a professional photographer, kind of thing?
Yeah. It's an interesting balance. When I think like when I first started doing this, it was just kind of like, oh, I'm a videographer. Like I just make videos.
Yeah.
Or like I show up, people hire me, people want a video made. I show up with a camera, make the video. But then when you think filmmaker, it's like, oh, you make movies, you make films. Then when you think cinematographer, it's like, oh, you are just like a hired gun, director of photography who shows up on set, has like makes the vision of the director happen.
Right.
But I think you can kind of blend all of those together and just kind of pick the qualities of each one and like for example, if I just show up to like a corporate shoot, if like a corporation organization hires me and they want me to make a video, well, that doesn't mean that I can't use filmmaking practices. It doesn't mean I can't use cinematography practices in that corporate video. And so it's kind of like a blend of all of them.
Yes.
And I think by calling myself like a filmmaker, it's like, oh, I don't just make videos, like I tell stories.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I like to say I'm a filmmaker.
Storyteller as well.
Yeah.
There's so many names for it. Well, yes, today I'm joined by Jared, and I'm excited because it's another native out of Joplin. Just this last episode, we had somebody from Texas. This will be episode number 5, I believe, so glad to have another Joplin native. He is also on the creative team for Hearts Cove, so very excited to be talking to the first person on the team. How was your background growing up, and you want to tell us like when you decided you wanted to start, making videos and, getting into that realm?
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Joplin now. I'm not a native Joplin. Originally I'm from Des Moines, Iowa.
Okay.
And so kind of growing up there, and then I moved to Joplin in 2016 to go to school. And I went to school at Ozark Christian College here in Joplin and majored in sort of just kind of like creative arts ministry,
Mm-hmm.
Working for the church in terms of like, using my creative talents, my skills, like in the setting of a church. And I work at a church now full time,
Right.
as kind of just like the media director. But I first picked up a camera. I really have no background in filmmaking and videography and photography. It wasn't until 2020 I actually picked up a camera for the first time.
Right.
And I started just making videos during the pandemic for a church that I worked at the time. And I was like, oh, I actually really love doing this. I love kind of I love being behind the camera. I love, kind of being able to craft, these videos from scratch, being able to create video content. And I was like, I really like doing this. And so I just kind of explored it more. I've always loved movies, documentaries, growing up, but I've always kind of been intrigued with like the aspect of making those things, but I never really knew what that meant.
Yeah.
So when I kind of picked up the camera for the first time, started making, some video content for a church, I was like, oh, I really love doing this. And then it just kind of evolved from there. I was like, well, okay, I'm doing this for a church, but also like I don't want to just do this for churches. Like I want to do this for I want this to be like my own thing. I want this to be what I do creatively. And so I found in 2021 I founded Blank Productions, which is an independent film production company located here in Joplin.
Mm-hmm.
And I started that because I kind of saw this niche that wasn't being filled in the area. There's a lot of videographers, a lot of content creators kind of in this area. but there wasn't anybody that I really saw that was like making short films, making documentaries, like really trying to make video content that told like good stories, or
Right,
you know,
right.
and so I was like, that's a niche that I didn't really see. That's a niche that I kind of thought I could, you know, try and fill. That was the kind of content I loved creating, you know, like working in the church doing this. It's a lot of capturing people's stories. It's a lot of going out into the community and like finding stories and just telling stories. And so I was like, I love, that's kind of like the whole, that's like what I love to do. Like if you were to ask me like, oh, what do you love to create the most? It's like documentaries. Like I
Yeah.
love documentary filmmaking, and short, you know, and short films. And so that's kind of why I started Blank, is I was just like, I feel like there's a niche that could be filled in this area, and I feel like it's something that I could provide. And so
Right.
just kind of been rolling with that ever since.
And I know you've spoken to me prior about Blank. Do you want to tell the audience kind of why that name? I know there's a reason why it's
Yeah.
called Blank.
Yeah, I'm proud of this. I was like, for so long, I was like, when I realized I wanted to do this, I was like, what do I want to call this thing? And I wrestled with it for so long, came up with a lot of bad names, and finally I was like, it just hit me one day. It was like Blank Productions, and the logo is just, you know, the word blank in two parentheses. Yeah. And so the whole idea is like, it's blank for your story. So it's like the whole kind of the hashtag I use all the time is hashtag your story here.
Yes.
Because like I left it blank for you. Like I left this production, I left this story blank so that it could be filled by yours.
Exactly.
So I'm pretty proud of that. Like that, I was like, oh man, that's really cool.
No, yeah, I love that.
And so yeah, that's what I rolled with. I love the simplicity of it. I love just kind of what it stands for, and I love kind of this gathering of just, oh yeah, hashtag your story here. It's like your story is something that we want to tell. It's what we want to fill the space with.
Right.
And so that was the idea behind the name.
And you said you started that in 2020?
2021.
2021?
Yeah, shortly after I moved to Joplin, in 2021 is when I founded it, like kind of late summer 2021. So
Right.
I haven't even really been doing it for 2 years yet.
So outside of that, you've been doing things like music videos
Mhm.
and things in that sort. What do you think you like about being able to be not only just in the church but being able to use it for your own creative purposes, as far as like music videos and creating other things that aren't documentaries? How do you think that pushes you or like strives you to are you eager to like do more things, do creative things, to try maybe things that you haven't tried before?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like I said, with really not having any background in this, it's all kind of just been like one giant learning experience of like, learning, proper cinematography techniques, learning proper storytelling techniques, like learning how to put together films, like in the whole pre-production to, production to post-production. So I love doing things that aren't necessarily, I love being able to pick up a camera and shoot a music video because it shows me different ways to like get shots, because obviously like the way I shoot a music video is probably different than the way I shoot an interview or the way I shoot a documentary.
Right.
And so it's doing each kind of one of those different things. It definitely allows me to kind of test myself and push myself in like different ways, to, for example, to frame things or to light things or to like try to tell the story without like abruptly telling the story,
Right.
So it just kind of all pushes me to really get creative and like really
Right.
kind of experiment with different ways, and then I can take those things and like apply them to different projects. So it's like, oh, I might shoot something a certain way in a music video, and then I find myself actually shooting something maybe in a documentary the same kind of way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's like there's a lot of this cross sort of, referencing between what I learned doing different projects that I think is really cool. But doing each individual project definitely is like a learning ground for me, and kind of it's just a way to practice, just a way to like
Right.
not be scared of trying new things and just to see how it looks. And if it looks bad, not to do it again. But you also might like find something that's like, oh, this looks really cool. Like I'm going to try to do this,
Yeah.
for other projects that are completely different, and you
Right.
get a really unique sort of feel for that.
So on that topic, what would you say is like some of the biggest or most important things that you've learned just within this time that you've started Blank or been doing videography as a whole? What are some of the like most important things that you think you've learned or picked up on?
Yeah, definitely like a lot of the technical stuff. I think it all starts there. like I said, with having no background in it, it just kind of started with like I have an eye for how I want things to look, and then I just kind of have to like practice and a lot of trial and error to get it to look like that. So yeah, just a lot of the technical stuff, like how does a video camera or a cinema camera work? How does lighting different things work? How do you get good sound? So it's all just kind of definitely a lot of the technical stuff.
Exactly.
But also like how to tell stories, I think, is like the big thing. Like it's like, okay, well, if I have an idea for a story, how do I chase that and like kind of bring it to completion? Like that's like bringing stories out of people, or like bringing stories out of places or events or circumstances. It's pretty challenging because like not a lot of I mean, I guess I'm mostly speaking from like a documentary standpoint, where I like might find an interesting person, but just because they're an interesting person doesn't mean they want a documentary made about them.
Right.
So it's like, how do I convince them that like, no, like actually this is really cool. Like your story is really cool. You're a really cool person, and I want to make this thing about you, or if it's a place, or and so that definitely I think that's what I'm still learning how to do that. Like I'm still terrified to just like walk up to people and be like, hey, I think you're really interesting. Can we like maybe make something?
Yeah.
I know you don't know me, and I know I don't really know you, but like I think this would be really cool.
Right.
So I think like that's something I'm still pretty terrified of, and I'm still learning how to do. Because I'm not like a very in-your-face type of person.
Yeah.
But that's like what a lot of documentary filmmaking is like you can't be afraid to get in people's faces and
Exactly.
like put a camera where most people aren't going to put a camera.
Right.
And so I'm definitely learning how to do that a little bit more and try to step out of my comfort zone when it comes to that. It's a lot different than like filming a short film or like making something that has a lot of pre-production involved, where like you're hiring actors, you have a script, you do these things where like everybody shows up on set and they're prepared to do it. Documentary filmmaking isn't like that at all. It's very much just kind of off the cuff. And so like trying to make sure that there's a story there and that you're following the story when there is no script, when there is no, pre-written dialogue, when there is no actors, that's hard. That can be really tricky.
Yeah, and I think that's where your creativeness really shows and is really able to portray itself, because like you said, there's nothing already written down to follow or instructions that you need to be doing. It's kind of just like, I want to tell your story, and the other person is trusting you to tell their story in a way that is the way that they would want it portrayed. So
yeah. I mean, I've only made one documentary so far, but I mean, even when it just comes to filming interviews with people, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, this is like I shot an interview just a couple of days ago for the church, and like the guy had such a cool story, but he was so like reluctant. Like, well, why do you want to tell my story? Like, why, why do you like why?
Right.
Like they always ask that, like, why do you want to tell my story? And so just like convincing them that like, no, like it's cool. I think it needs to be shared. Like that's something, that's something very unique, I think, to this sort of filmmaking.
And I think on that note right there, it's very important to mention that a lot of people in the creative field, or maybe not even in the creative field, just doing their own thing, don't really realize how much impact they could have on someone, or how much like their story is actually valuable to someone else. And it happens a lot that I know in the creative field, because I know a lot of people that like maybe inspire me, and they don't really even know that they inspire me. And so like you said, when someone asks you like why, like it's because their story has something that you feel like is worth sharing with other people. And just like this whole podcast, I feel like everybody that I bring on this podcast has something about them that is worth sharing with the world, so that maybe we can inspire someone else. Maybe someone else can step out of their comfort zone and do whatever it is that they like to do. And so yeah, that's very important that you mentioned that, because like I said, doing things and just kind of being yourself and being creative with it, and having someone notice that and want to interview you or talk to you about it is very important, because like I said, most of the time we don't even realize how much we're doing, or how much that our work may affect someone else. So
yeah,
very important.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Something that you maybe have, or something that you enjoy just doing on your free time other than videography, like is there anything that you do outside of this creative world?
I mean, I just love to consume things, like watch movies. Like right now I'm reading a book that is just, the whole book is just interviews with like documentary filmmakers and like their process.
Right.
So like, I think I definitely like, ever since doing this, I fell in love with not just like the creation of it, but just like, I kind of have like a newfound perspective on like movies, on films, on documentaries, on music, like anything visual, anything that's visual that tells a story. I definitely have like a different perspective on, and so I always love like studying those things, watching those things, trying to pick up. And it's interesting because like you could argue that, well, even that is like still kind of doing what you do creatively. But I mean, it's hard to get out of that. Like when you love doing it, like you're always going to want to kind of surround yourself with it.
Right.
Um,
I understand that 100% because even on my free time, what I do is like you mentioned, I like watching a lot of music videos, and just the way that people color grade their music videos is enough to inspire me to, I want to do a photo shoot that's within this color theory here, or anything that I watch that's like a movie or something on Netflix that could inspire me to do a photo shoot based on that. So, and it's even like you're not even trying really to just be there, but like it's there because you're just automatically watching something, or it's something that just sparks your interest as a creative that kind of just brings it to the top of your head.
Yeah, I definitely notice things now when I watch movies that like I've never noticed before. I'm like, oh, that was lit an interesting way, or like, oh, and so it's you just notice these things, and they can't get out of your head. And I think there's something cool about that because it means that you do love what you do.
Oh, 100%.
And you're always trying to learn and you're looking at other things to say, okay, well, how can I make my stuff better? And so I love I'm not like, so I've always loved movies and things, but like definitely now I have a newfound sort of like perspective on content when I see it. And I mean, like, every weekend my wife and I watch movies. Like that's just what we do on the weekend. So it's like I love doing that.
Is your wife like into the creative field at all?
Yeah, she's a writer. She's a poet. She writes poetry, and she currently, just for the past like 6 months or so, has been really into pottery, doing ceramics. She actually sells stuff at Zinc.
Oh, okay.
And at the Spiva Art Center, the museum there. So she loves doing, that's kind of like the thing that she's doing now. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything that you can think of at the top of your head that is like, this is the proudest moment of my life thus far? Maybe a point in time where you felt like, that I've done something that I'm proud of.
I mean, I think starting Blank for sure. Yeah. It was kind of this, I'm creating this thing that I hope, kind of one day evolves into more of like I'm known in this area for like making these things. Like if people want a documentary made, if people want a short film made, if they have an idea, if they have a script written, and they're like looking for a production company to make it. It's like I eventually want to get to the point where it's like I'm the person that they call to do that.
Exactly.
And so but even before there, just kind of in this process that I'm, this stage that Blank is in right now, where it's still kind of coming up off the ground, still just, I mean, you know how it goes, trying to, starting something and just kind of cultivating it and like into something. We're definitely still in like the beginning phases. But I'm still very proud of it. I still sometimes just go to my website and like, I just look at it. I'm like, oh, look at this thing I made,
Exactly.
And it's really cool.
It is a good feeling when you're able to look at something, or whether it be a project or anything at all, and you're able to look at it and just admire it and see that you've done that, like you've accomplished it. And now it's all about like building it up and getting it to the point where you want it to be. Like you said, you want to be able to be that filmmaker in the area that people like immediately go to. Like, this is the one we need to go to. Is there any times in your life where you have maybe felt like very discouraged, or like anything that you've experienced that may be discouraging to other creatives that you could maybe give advice on?
Yeah, dude. I mean, honestly, there's been so many times where like I pull all the footage onto my computer, when I'm done making something, and I just like look at it and I'm like, this is bad. Like this isn't, like, what am I doing? This isn't good. Or it's like, the way when I go to color grade something, it's like, oh, this isn't doing what I thought it was going to do. And like, this isn't looking like what I envisioned it to look like. And that happens so much. It's just kind of like, I feel like that's the curse of creatives, it's just like, oh, we love what we do, but then we see what we do and we hate it for a little while.
So when you're in those processes and you see that happening, like, what is your way out of it? Like, how do you find yourself convincing yourself that it's okay or that it will be fine?
I think just kind of letting go of the expectations of what I hoped and thought it would be, and just look and see what it is now. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, but let me look at it as what it is currently. What is it now? And like, then what can I, like, maybe how can I kind of go back to the original thing with it, or like even make something new, something that's like, when I get done with it, there's been a lot of projects that I've done like that, where it's like, oh, I finish the project and I'm like, oh, this is nowhere close to what I thought this was, or the plan I had for it, but it's better, but it's so
Exactly.
much better.
Yeah.
And so I think just like sticking to what you've made, just follow the process. Just like, it's a wild ride and it's gonna be bumpy and you're probably gonna hate a lot of stuff that you do. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, just keep fleshing it out. Keep working on it, keep making it into something, and then when you see the final result, like you're probably gonna love it.
Right.
At the end of the day, and maybe you don't, but that's okay too. But I think I've struggled with this. Go ahead.
I noticed you said that something about keep doing it, repetition earlier on in the podcast. I want to mention that and bring it back to that for a quick second here, because I think that a lot of people don't realize that, there's a time and you're not going to be at the top within like 1 week. So like, realizing that practice makes perfect is actually, like, I know it's used quite a bit, but like that's honestly how it is in the creative field. It's like you're not going to learn unless you go through the steps of doing it and doing it wrong, so that you can pick up new things and learn what you did wrong. And so yeah, what you said earlier about that just really stuck out, because like actually doing it over and over and over again, and maybe like you said, you may not like it, but like you go into the next project with a different mindset that you did this wrong, and so I won't do it again this time.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's very important when you're in a creative field, just to be able to know that just got to keep doing it. You got to keep trying at whatever it is that you're doing, and if it's not good the first time, you try it again until you find something that you like. And that's something that you can't learn in any like university or any or YouTube or anything. That's just something that you just kind of have to do as you go, and that's kind of how I learned as well. Just with photography, is just I did things and I didn't like it. Maybe it looked awful in my eyes, and so I went out the next time and I just tried to not do the same thing I did prior, and just kind of do something different to experience new things or try new things. And eventually, you get to a point where you're happy where you are, but you still have this feeling that every time you go out, you're going to learn something new.
Yeah, I mean, that's the case with anything that you do. It's like practice is the worst part of it, because it's like you just want to be good at it. You just want to start out and you want to be the best, or you want to make great things. But that's not, like, very rarely does that happen.
Exactly.
That's with everything.
Right. I had somebody on the first episode, Val on the first episode of this podcast, gave me a quote that I'm like still thinking about to this day. She's like, everybody has a different timeline. And so you may see somebody on Instagram with 100K followers that you look up to, and you're just wishing you were there. You're wishing you could be like that. And you just want it like immediately. But like what you said really resembled to me, because like I think everyone does have a different timeline. Like you may grow faster than someone else around you, or someone else around you may grow faster than you. And it's about being able to realize that, not everybody has to be at the top at the same time. And so everybody's process is different. Everybody learns differently, and everybody grows differently. And so just everybody coming to terms with that, knowing that time is very different for everyone, and how even like so many things can be brought into that, like where you live could be a factor, or what you're doing, the kind of work you're doing, and what others are doing around you could be a factor. And there's so many things that could factor into why you're not at the point that you want to be just yet. And just realizing that and understanding that is very important, so that when you grow and you keep growing, you know that it's okay to be, working at a slow rate or slower than others around you, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I definitely think that's something that just has stuck to me, and I've not been able to get that out of my head, because I think that what I do, even the photography that I make, I think it's very different than what other people do around me, and I'm still like just growing slowly. But I'm not in a rush, I'm not in a rush to be somewhere, to, get somewhere before a certain time point. I'm kind of just doing things as I go and kind of creating, and I've always done things just because I love creating. And so a lot of times when people get mixed up with, loving to create, and then just creating to grow is like a very different thing. And so I've just been enjoying it, and it's kind of thing that I want to talk to you about today, is like, why do you do what you do, and kind of look to inspire other people with what you do. Is there anything on this topic, is there anything that you do that you feel like you have any projects, or that you things that you've done that you feel like you may have rushed, and you've been like, okay, this is not it's not what I need to do, but I did it because I wanted to get it out, I wanted to push it.
Yeah, I mean, like, probably that first documentary, like the documentary that I have made in Iowa Heritage Farm, like that was the first one that I've made. That was just like, I want to try making a documentary, and I follow a lot of content creators, a lot of filmmakers, and it takes them, months, sometimes years to like make their films. And I had my documentary from like the conception of the idea to like done, completed on the internet, like in less than a month.
Wow.
And so it was
Yeah.
like, and I think I just get excited, you know. It's just
Yeah.
like you have this thing that you want to make, and you want to see it, like you just want to see the final thing, and so like you just kind of, you might not spend as much time as you
Right.
should, you know. Granted, I still think it turned out really. I think it turned out fine. I think it
Oh,
turned.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it turned out to be what it needed to be. And I think and I think I just kind of work fast anyway. Like
Mhm.
I've been told that just by people. It's like, oh, you get projects done really quick. But I do want to start pushing myself to kind of like, hey, if there's like maybe, like I have an idea for a script for a short film right now, which I'm not really a script writer, screenplay
Mhm.
writer, but that's something I kind of want to challenge myself to do a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I have an idea, and I wanted, with this one, I do want to try and take my time.
Mhm.
Like I'm like, okay, well maybe I should spend a couple months just in the pre-production phase,
Yes.
and then maybe a few months in the production phase, and then however long it takes in the post-production phase. Instead of just trying to do like all of it in like a month and be like, yeah, it's done, here it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
I feel like I rush things quite a bit, and that's not always a bad thing, but I do think that there is something to the fact that like it takes years for movies to be
Exactly.
made, you know?
And I think there's a beauty in like, and I think that's what makes the difference between someone who still has a lot to learn to someone who knows that their work is good and they're willing to sit on it for as long as it
Mhm.
takes until it's like perfect to them. Because even I like you said, you just get excited. You want to
Yeah.
release whatever it is that you're making, and you want the world to see it,
Mhm.
and kind of just like give you the satisfaction of putting it out. But I think, like I said, that's what makes the difference in between people that have been doing it for so long to know, like, it's okay to sit on this for like
Yeah.
a couple of years even until
Yeah.
it's finally to the perfection that I want it to be.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to push myself more to do. I mean, obviously there's projects, hired project stuff where it's like, oh, there is a deadline,
Mhm.
like it has to be done by this time. But for a lot of the more, filmmaking sort of things that I want to do, I think like it's okay to like even spend a few months, like put it on Kickstarter, put it on, you know what I mean, and like really
Right.
kind of like get it backed, like really, kind of gain support for it, and like really, you don't have to just like have an idea in your head, go out and make it by yourself, and then publish it in 2 weeks. It's like sometimes you can take the time to like really flesh out a project, really flesh out the idea, really like make it something that people want to get behind, really want to support. And in the end, I think it'll be a better project because of that. And so I do want to push myself a little bit more, and like it's okay, yeah, it's okay to spend some time on things.
Yeah.
Um, so
On that note, I have two more questions for you, and these are kind of similar to what we're just now talking about. Question number one, and you can answer them as we go. Question number
Mhm.
one is, what is something that you would tell yourself, your younger self, from maybe elementary school or whenever you first started, kind of getting into this field? What is something that you would tell yourself now, after everything you've been through, after what you've accomplished? What are some words that you would say to your younger self to kind of tell them that it's going to be okay?
yeah, I would just say it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you're gonna face, you're gonna face like just a lot of doubt, whether that's yourself or other people.
Mhm.
You're gonna face a lot of like, oh, am I like is what I'm doing like really meaningful?
Mhm.
Like, is it impactful? Am I good at it?
Right.
And like you're always gonna kind of face and struggle with those things. And so yeah, just it's gonna be okay. Like just find something you love to do it, learn how to do it well. Because I also think if you're not learning and you're just always bad at something, like you're never gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like some of the part of the joy does come from at least being decent at something.
Mhm.
And so I think yeah, just put in the time to at least get decent at it. Put in the time to learn.
That's very important because I know a lot of photographers and people that have wanted to start photography that, for that same reason, is the reason they no longer do it, because
Yeah.
they didn't put in the time to actually get decent at it, to get
Mhm.
better at it. And it's that it's that thing where people just want it to be like, okay, I want to be good at this immediately, and
Yeah.
it's not. It takes time to grow into something. It takes time to even know how to use your camera, let alone like actually be good at it. So
Yeah, and I think on that note too, like I think that's why I feel so passionate about what I do now. Is like obviously I'm not the best. I'm
Mhm.
still learning a lot, but it's something. This is like the when it comes to doing creative things. I've tried a lot of different creative things, this is like the one thing that I've really felt like, oh, this is my thing.
Exactly. Yes.
And so I think I think creative, like your creativity kind of comes in phases, comes in waves. Like if you're a creative person, you see someone paint a picture and you're like, I want to paint a picture.
Mm-hmm.
You see someone like write a book, I want to write a book. You see someone make a movie, I want to write a movie.
Yeah.
Because like you just have this creative brain, you want to do creative things. And so I think when people do that, when they pick up a camera, when they pick up a paintbrush and they're not good at it and they quit, I think that might be like their consciousness, their inner self saying, hey, this isn't your thing. And that's okay.
Right.
But like I think like when you actually decide to pursue something, when you decide to learn how to be good at something, I think that's your inner consciousness saying, this is your thing. Like you love this. You love this enough to learn how to get better. You love this enough to pursue it. And so like this is your thing. This is your creative thing. And so I think that that's kind of what I found with this,
Right.
and which I've never felt this way before about anything creatively I've done. So I think that's something that excites me.
That's great advice to anybody listening, actually, because a lot of people are going through that right now as they listen, and not being able to know, like, am I doing something correctly, or am I doing this because I love it, or am I doing this because this is what I want to do? And so, yeah, like you said, just being able to, when you feel it, that you want to keep learning, that you're willing to put in more time, that's how you know, like, this is what I think I'm going to be good at.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just come back to it. You know what I mean? If you keep coming back to it, chances are that's for a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, final question, and this is the question I ask everybody before we end. Dreaming in Red obviously means dreaming with intent and passion. That's what the color red stands for in Hearts Cove and Dreaming in Red podcast. I want to know, what are some of the dreams that you have for this year, 2023, on your own, personal, or just creatively, that you want to accomplish this year, if you're willing to share those with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely just want to make more content, whether that's more films, more documentaries, more music videos. I just want to make more things, you know. Mm-hmm. Like last year, I didn't make a ton of stuff. The year before, I always, like, every year that goes by, I either want to be making like more small things or like few large, like big projects, you know. And so I don't know, like this year I kind of told myself I want to make more documentaries this year. I want to try to tell more stories this year. Mm-hmm. So I think, yeah, maybe making a couple larger documentaries, you know, that span the whole length of the year,
right.
Or even just one big one that spans the whole length of the year, or, you know, just a lot more smaller projects than what I've done previously. So I think I just want to make more stuff. Yeah, I've got ideas that I want to try and make happen.
Sweet.
So.
Yeah, no, and like everybody in Hearts Cove is all together pushing to, you know, encourage you to do whatever it is that you want to do this year, and we're looking that you're able to do that and accomplish the goals that you have for yourself. Again, I just want to thank you for the time and for allowing us to kind of interview you and talk with you and be on this podcast. For those listening, what is your social media so people can check you out?
Yeah, Instagram, _ blank productions. Website, blank-productions.com. Facebook, just blank productions. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, Jared will be our videographer for Dreaming in Red and for just anything Hearts Cove. So you guys will probably be seeing a lot more of him coming in this next few months with any other projects that we have. Again, thank you, Jared, for stopping in and letting us talk with you for a little bit, for allowing us to be here. And yeah, that's it for this podcast episode. If you guys enjoyed it, guys, please make sure to leave a rating on the podcast. Like I said last episode, I don't request 5-star rating, because if it's not a 5-star show, I don't want you to lie to us and say it is.
There you go.
So give us a real review. If you think it's a 3-star show, give us that. We want to improve. That's part of improving. So I'm never going to request for a 5-star if it's not a 5-star. So whatever you guys think is fair, drop a review, leave a star rating in the Spotify, and that would be great. Check us out on YouTube as well. This one is the first episode actually that is fully video on YouTube. So we'll be trying to get a lot more of these coming out. So thank you guys for listening. Jared, any last words?
No, yeah, just thanks. I'm excited to be doing stuff with Hearts Cove now. I'm excited to see what we can make, what we can create, what we can do together. So, yeah, this is a great first step.
Sweet. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Sweet.
There we go.
Awesome, man.